What's up, everybody? Axe Wizard here, back with another Cairn video for you. So I finished my guard's adventure with my group. We started new characters, and we decided to try out Second Edition. This was our first session. It only lasted about 3 hours or so. It was pretty fun. It was character creation was pretty cool. So we only really got to cover character creation, and then I kind of played around with a little bit of the wilderness procedures, but I didn't follow them exactly. I just sort of robbed bits and pieces of what I wanted from them. I just want to share my experience. Let's jump into it. All right, so let's talk about character creation. So how I did this is I had 3 players. I had my friend and then my 2 boys, my youngest and my oldest, and we rolled or chose backgrounds. So we basically rolled for the backgrounds. So my youngest, he rolled Bone Keeper. That was what he started with. So how I did this is every step for character creation, I basically went around. So we rolled the background for my youngest. We went through and rolled the background tables. Once his background stuff was sorted, we went to the next person, did the background stuff, so on and so forth. That's just how I chose to run it. So he rolled Bone Keeper. He rolled a 4. So let's go to page 27 here. So the Bone Keeper, you are a shepherd to the departed. You listen to the final whispers of the dead as they descend into the cold, unyielding earth. You know that to fully celebrate the gift of life, we must honor its finale as well. My youngest was super excited about being like a Bone Keeper. He thought that was awesome. He didn't want to re-roll it or anything. He was all on board with Bone Keeper. So I gave him his starting gear. He filled that out. He was super excited to have chains. That came in really handy later. And then when it came time to pick a name, I just read him the list of names and just had him pick one. He liked Nyx, so he picked Nyx. He almost picked Barnaby, but he thought it was more funny than like menacing, so he went with Nyx. Then when it came time for him to determine what did you take from the dead, when he rolled, I believe he kept rolling 6s. So he got a Plague Doctor's mask, which he was super pumped about. That was cool. Next, it was what tool was invaluable in your work. He rolled another 6, so he got repellent. Powerful stuff. Its faded label makes it unclear what it is actually meant to repel, though. Perhaps everything. 3 uses. So that was Nyx's background, was Bone Keeper. So my eldest rolled a 14, so he was a Kettlewright, which is going to be page 47. So Kettlewright, you are known by the smell of molten metal and the jingle of tin. You are not a mere merchant, but an artisan of fire and metal. So you start out with pincers, which I think are like tongs, tongs. I just call them tongs, but pincers works too. I think of like pincers like the pincers of a crab or whatever, but you know, maybe they are called pincers. Roll of 10, a tent, and a hammer. So he was pretty happy with that. Then for the name, he picked Fergus. So he's like, Fergus! So he really liked that. Then when we said, what is your trade? He rolled a 5. So you offer protection as a service, quietly watching for threats as money exchanges hands. You start with plus D4 hit protection and carry a longsword and a brigandine. So he's pretty happy with that. When we rolled hit protection, he rolled 4 on the D6 and 2 on the D4, so he started out with 6 hit protection, which is pretty good. And yeah, so Fergus had a problem to where it was almost like he got too much stuff. So right here, he's got this longsword and brigandine. Both are bulky, so there's 4 slots right there. He also gets pincers, roll of 10, tent, and a hammer. That's another 4 slots, so he's already at 8 slots. And then during character creation, you're also supposed to get a torch and rations, so that would put you at 10 slots. He's already full up, so I think he just ditched his tent like right away. He's like, well, no one else has a tent. I'm just gonna ditch mine. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting that I hadn't had happen before, is that I've never had a character start with too much inventory. I know that it was possible with the first edition, but that was interesting. So all right, so next up, my friend was a March Guard, so he rolled 15. So page 49. So March Guard, bound by blood oath to patrol the border and protect the realm. Once sworn, the oath cannot be broken. The guard always finds its own. So starting gear, lantern, oil, longsword, bulky, and boiled leather. So right there, there's 5 slots taken up. For the names, he picked Thorn, and then on his character sheet, he actually like drew thorns. There you go. So he drew thorns. I thought that was pretty cool. So when he said, why did you take the oath? What did he roll? I'm pretty sure he rolled a 6 too. So you were in a dark place and decided that your life needed a little direction. You're still not so sure it was the right choice. Take an oilskin coat and mapping paper. So there's 7 slots taken up right there. And then you've also got the torch and rations. There's 9 slots, and then he also got he got the pain band as well. So there was like 10 slots just right there. So he was already like at 0 hit protection right away. So touch an injured creature to transfer their wounds to you. Exchange their lost strength with your own. Recharge. Wear the ring while in perfect health. It will take 1 strength permanently. He didn't touch this at all. He was like, I'm probably never going to use this, but sounds cool. But that's Thorn the March Guard. And I've got a 4th character sheet here, but it wasn't a player. We'll get into that in just a little bit. All right, so for traits, so for all these traits, you know, physique, skin, hair, face, speech, clothing, virtue, vice, I had him roll all that. It's just like it was in Cairn First Edition, so they were kind of having a good time with that. My youngest kept wanting to re-roll like everything. So he plays Nyx, the Bone Keeper. When he rolled for physique, his first roll was number 3, flabby. He didn't like that, so he rolled again, and he got number 9, stout. For skin, he got a birthmark. It was kind of funny. We were trying to figure out where the birthmark was. At first, he wanted it like on his butt. And then he's like, no, I want it in my eye. And I'm like, no, it has to be on your skin. So I think we said it's like it's going to be around his eye. So it looks like he has a black eye. For hair, he rolled wispy, and he's got a bony face, number 1 bony, which is like perfect for a bone keeper. For speech, he has blunt speech. At first he rolled squeaky, but he didn't like it. When he re-rolled, it was still squeaky. I let him roll one more time and it was blunt, so he went with that. For clothing, he has frayed clothing, and then for virtue, he's disciplined. You know what? I can actually read his handwriting this time. That's awesome. And for his vice, what does it say? He was rude, I think? No, he was deceitful. So yeah, so he's deceitful and he's also disciplined. Okay, so that was Nyx. So I'm not going to scroll through for every one of them. I'm just going to read them off here. But so Fergus was brawny. That was his physique. He has soft skin, bald hair. So no hair, he's bald. He's got a broken face, formal speech. He's got bloody clothing. He's honorable, but he's also rude. So that's pretty fun. And then Thorn has an athletic physique, weathered skin, oily hair, a square face, blunt speech, bloody clothing. He's gregarious, and he's also craven. So then once we rolled our traits, I kind of like did the step backwards, but then I had them roll. I wanted to figure out what their traits were first, because how I did it is I have them roll 3d6, and then I just kind of keep track of the results, and then I just let them put it in whatever order they want. So that may not be the way it's supposed to be written, but that's the way I like to do it. For example, like I don't want him to have like this brawny trait and then he's got like a 4 for his strength. So I just let them roll what their character traits are, and then we rolled attributes and hit protection. So we did that. We didn't bother with the age. I just had the my youngest roll on the omens table. But so after we did that, we rolled attributes. Everybody got pretty standard stuff, so everyone was rolling anywhere between like 7 to 13. I felt bad for Fergus because I let him re-roll one because he got his first set of rolls was 3, 7, and 8, and I just didn't want to start him off that low, so I let him re-roll it, and he rolled a 13. So once we do that, everyone's having a good time laughing about their characters, and then it's time to roll on the bonds. So for Nyx, he rolled an 8, so you received a letter, petty, detailing an incontrovertible proof that your true parentage is that of Fey nobility. The note also indicated a date and location where you are to meet them, deep in the woods. So for this, I didn't feel right having a letter take up an entire inventory slot, so I just told them to write it in their notes. Probably not the thing to do, but whatever. Fergus, he rolled a 20 on the bonds table. So one of your ancestors wronged a moss witch who cursed their bloodline. Your visage causes mirrors to shatter. You've noticed that the shards can sometimes reveal illusions. So they all thought that was pretty funny. Like Fergus's like broken face just shatters mirrors. And then Thorn. So Thorn rolled a 4. You find a tiny crystal prism, petty, buried in the dirt. When held to the light, it shows visions of an unknown location deep within the woods. Sometimes you feel a presence looking back at you. So again, with that, I just had him put that in his notes. It didn't feel right to just have it take up an inventory slot since everybody was pretty much already like maxed on inventory with the exception of Nyx, who still had like 3 slots left, or maybe he had 2 slots. I don't know. But everyone was pretty stacked inventory wise starting out. So that was interesting. That wasn't a problem that I ran into previously. So kind of neat, kind of a fun little challenge. So anyway, we rolled all the characters, got all that stuff situated, figured out what their bonds were, and then I had my youngest roll on the omens table, and I wrote it down somewhere, but I don't remember what we rolled. Oh yeah, for the omen, we rolled 19. So local fauna is behaving oddly, displaying heightened aggression or fleeing the area entirely. Hunters talk of a shadowy figure that roams the woods, calling to the animals. I actually forgot about this when we started on the adventure, which it would have changed how things turn out, but you know what? I'm gonna make it work. So to start out with, I was trying to figure out, so I was asking them like, so how do you guys want to start this adventure? Like, do you all know each other? Do you want to just meet each other randomly, or like, what do you want to do? So Nyx, the bone keeper, was like, I want to be stalking them. I'm like, okay, I can make that work. So I just basically started it out to where Fergus, the kettle wright, was working at a shop, and then Thorn, the march guard, was trying to have Fergus like repair his sword. And then they both noticed this shadowy figure watching them. So after some awkward role play where my youngest was trying to be like a really edgelord, you know, like I just watched them, and like, you know, there's a silhouette of like this weird beak, and it's so he just kind of stalked them awkwardly for a while. Eventually Nyx approaches and like tries to buy a new weapon off of Fergus, because Nyx only starts out with a wooden stake that does d6, so he wants a better weapon. So he wanted like this sweet scythe. So I was thinking like, okay, well, it's basically a pole arm. It's probably gonna run him about 30 gold or like 20 gold or whatever it was. So I was telling Fergus like, yeah, you know that you could craft it. You've got a pretty good shaft nearby that you could use for the half, and then it shouldn't take too long to craft it. It's, you know, that it would typically run about 20 gold for that. And then so Fergus is like, well, that'll run you 30 gold. So Nyx tried to barter him down. Fergus's boss, the owner of the shop, came through, overheard this haggling, and just basically went off on Fergus like, you're trying to, how are we supposed to make money if you keep giving people deals? You're fired. Get out of here. Pack your things and go. So that was like an easy way to make it so Fergus was free from the shop so he could go on the adventure. Thorn was like, you know, I've got this weird prism that like shows this weird location. Do you guys want to help me find it? And so that's how they went off on their adventure. So before Fergus left the shop, he's like, I want to go look at the mirror and just break it. I'm like, okay, so you shatter the mirror. So yeah, so I looked at the wilderness exploration procedure. I mostly just used the weather. So I had my youngest roll, and he immediately rolled a 6. So right off the bat, extreme weather. I had them all laughing because it's like, as you guys are about to set out, you see like dark storm clouds overhead, and a volcano erupts in the distance, and a hurricane starts blowing trees around you, and a tsunami is washing over the volcano. Like, I just was joking about it, like, you know, the irony of extreme weather as soon as the game starts. So they all went and bedded down in the inn for the evening. They were trying to figure out the room scenario. I just said it was like a gold for a room. I forgot to look in the rules to see how much services and stuff were. I was just in it, just going with it. So they each paid for their own room. Nyx said he wanted to sleep underneath his bed, like it was a coffin or something. I was like, all right, role play it up, buddy. Enjoy. So then they set out, and I have Fergus roll for weather. He rolled unpleasant, so it's just raining because I'm using spring here. I'm just starting out in spring. Why make it more difficult at the start? You know, ease them into it. They set out on the road. They don't really have any encounters or anything. Again, I was only using the weather table and this wilderness events table, so I was just rolling them. I was doing this a lot less formal. I wasn't following the exploration cycle. I didn't do anything with like the wilderness actions or the speed at which they want to travel. I just kind of played it all by ear. They go to bed down for the night. They end up doing this cool, like, my oldest has been watching these like survival videos on YouTube where people are like, you know, going out and just building like a sweet house with nothing but a hatchet. So he was like, yeah, I wanna you know, forage around for some wood. He was like describing in detail how he's gonna build this sweet shack. I said they found this like upended tree that has the roots exposed that was given like a nice natural shelter, so they were just like kind of reinforcing it with like, you know, boughs and leaves and stuff like that. So they had a good time building a sweet survival shelter to camp out in. During their watch, I was rolling on the wilderness events table. So I forgot who took first watch. I think it might have been Fergus. So Fergus rolled a 6, discovery. The party finds food, treasure, or other useful resources. The warden can instead choose to reveal the primary feature of an area. So I just say for this, like while he's sitting there on watch, and again, I don't think this is even really what it's meant to be used for. I think this is like meant for traveling, not necessarily standing watch, but I was going with it. Gave me an idea. Why not? He's sitting there kind of watching the fire. He notices like this metallic glint off the fire in the bushes. So he doesn't wake anybody up. He just goes and investigates. And I say that he finds, you know, this dagger, and then he finds this old half-buried pack with some more supplies and stuff in it. So he's got this extra pack that he just kind of brings back. He's got a dagger, and that's his watch. He doesn't really tell anybody about it yet. Then I think it was Nix's watch next. Nix rolled environment, so the weather shifted, so I had him re-roll on the weather table. It was unpleasant again, so it was still raining, so I was like, yeah, whatever. Cool. And then when it was Thorn's time to conduct watch, he rolled number 2, sign. The party discovers a clue, spore, or indication of a nearby encounter, locality, hidden feature, or information about a nearby area. So I just say that he notices like there's this game trail that kind of passes through the camp and disappears into the trees. So he's like, well, I'm bored. I'm gonna light my lantern and then go check it out. Okay. So he goes and follows it for a little bit. He said he didn't want to go too far. I just said that the path leads to a hole that goes in the ground. It's a sizable hole, and you can't see anything in it, and you don't hear anything. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to leave that for the morning. I'm going to go back and finish my watch. Once everybody finished their watch, Thorn told everybody about the hole he found. Fergus told everybody about the dagger and the pack he found. And they all kind of went to investigate this hole. Now, they're all kind of thinking like, well, who's going to go in this hole? Nix volunteers. I'm like, well, with your long mask, you might have a hard time getting in there. So he like reluctantly takes his mask off and then crawls in the hole with his lantern. And Fergus is like grabbing him by the ankles in case he has to yank him out. So then I just made up that there was a wild boar in that hole that came rushing out, and so they both succeeded on their dexterity saves to pull Nix out of the way. The boar busts out of the hole and squealing, and tusks are flailing and stuff like that, and then chaos ensues. So it starts out, the initial round of combat, Fergus wants to take his longsword and chop that fool. So he went and attacked it. I think like Thorn was just gonna wait to see like what was happening. He was just gonna try to like stay near it and just, he had his sword out, but he wasn't attacking yet. And then I think Nix tried to stab it in the butt with his wooden stake. So I had them both roll damage. Fergus rolled a 7. Nix only rolled like a 2 or something like that. So we just went with Fergus's 7 damage right to the boar. I gave it like 10 hit protection anyway, so it was already pretty hurt. Starts squealing. It charges ends up charging Thorn, because I basically rolled a d6 and Thorn was the person who had charged, who didn't do anything to it yet, but he managed to avoid it. The boar rolled a 1 and Thorn had 1 armor, so completely mitigated the damage. And then from there they start thinking like, whoa, what if we could tame this thing? We could have a pet pig. So then they wanted to tame it. So what they did next is Thorn wanted to jump on its back and like try to get it in a headlock, and I was like, all right, that's pretty risky. I'll say, I forgot if it was a dexterity or a strength save. Whatever save I had to make, he succeeded. So he jumped on the back, wasn't able to like strangle it or anything, but he was hanging on to it. And then Fergus was trying to like soothe it, like, here boy, trying to like whistle to it and stuff and like try to like soothe it while he's being strangled, and he just has this big gaping slash on its side from Fergus just a few seconds earlier. So this mayhem kind of continues for like another turn or two. Thorn is maintaining his strength checks to be able to stay on while the boar is trying to buck him around and stuff. Fergus keeps trying to like soothe it just for fun. I had to make willpower saves. Wasn't really doing anything because the boar's being choked by a Thorn. But eventually Nyx pulls out his chain and wants to like hog tie the boar with the chain. So with a combined action of everybody, Thorn was able to succeed on a strength check to be able to like to wrangle the boar down and to like get him in a position where he could be tied up. And then Fergus was also helping, trying to get the boar's legs together. And then Nyx just hog tied him. So he did a dexterity save to see if he could do it quickly with a chain. Everybody succeeded, man. Everybody was rolling great. So they have this boar hog tied. Thorn kind of jumps off of its back. Eventually they get the boar to stop and just to lay on its side to soothe it. The boar's kind of bleeding from the wound. So what ends up what Fergus does is he takes his roll of tin and he wants to cut out staples to try to like to basically stitch the wound together. I had to make a dexterity check for that because it's like, you know, you used to work with metal, not stitching together a pig. He succeeded. He rolled like a 1, so it was like a perfect, like awesome success. He stitched that boar back together, staples no problem. Then they were trying to feed it some of their rations, and they were petting it and soothing it. Eventually the boar's just kind of laying on its side, just breathing heavy, just, you know, eating some of the food that they're offering. And they really wanted to tame this boar, and they were going to name it Elon Tusk. That was what they wanted to do. They wanted to tame this damn boar. Well, they spent like another night there with the boar. They ended up like moving the chain to be around his neck like a choker chain, you know, and then they ended up wrapping it around a tree. So the tree they wrapped it around was close enough to the camp, so when nighttime fell again, the boar was scared of the fire, but ended up kind of snuggling in the shelter with them. So here they are all cuddling with this boar they're all calling Elon Tusk. And I just said, for the hell of it, yeah, you know, you guys tame it. It feels pretty good around you guys. And I think how I'm gonna make that work with that omen where like the local fauna and stuff like that's behaving aggressively is maybe this boar hasn't been affected by that yet and is scared. So their next goal was that they were going to go to the nearest town to try to gather more details about Thorn's prism that you can see into and view this weird land, and sometimes there's eyes looking back at you. So here they are walking this boar. Fergus was clever enough to realize that he kept the pack, so they ended up fixing up this little backpack for Elon Tusk, and I just said it gives them like 6 slots, so they basically have like this combat mule, this combat horse that they can't ride, but has 6 slots, so they were all kind of like offloading some inventory. I made a character sheet for Elon Tusk, and he's carrying Fergus's hammer and pincers, he's carrying Thorn's pain band and oil can, and then he's carrying Nyx's repellent and some rations. So now they have a pet pig who they named Elon Tusk. That's about where we stopped it. We basically made it to the a town as night was falling. They decided that they were going to make camp outside the wall away from the road. They had the guards come by during the night and just to see what was going on, and they were pretty excited that they had a pig, but you know, the pig can't be allowed in town, so it was pretty fun. And then that's where we stopped it. So next session we're going to figure out what they're going to do in town, whether someone's going to go in or someone's going to stay with Elon Tusk, or if they're going to try to smuggle him in. I have no idea what's going to happen. But yeah, that was my first session playing Second Edition Cairn, and you know, as always, I'm getting rules wrong, and I sort of don't care. It was fun. That's the end goal of it. My players had fun. I had fun. So I like the concept of the wilderness and dungeon exploration procedures. I'm not going to use them as written. They're a bit too rules heavy for how I like to run Cairn. If it's something I don't know, I might spend a second trying to look it up. If I can't find it, I just move on. Well, Cairn's quite a bit thicker than Cairn First Edition. So Second Edition, it's mostly all backgrounds and stuff, which is cool. The procedures are a bit too rulesy for me, but that's just my personal preference. So, but that being said, there's still stuff that I can use. This weather table is awesome. Kind of rolling these events makes it a lot more fun, and you know, it's one of those things to where that's one of the things that people might complain about Cairn is that you don't roll as many dice, but with these you're rolling dice more often. So that was a plus. That was a big hit with the group, and yeah, so we had a blast, and we're gonna see what happens with this weird trio of Nyx the Bone Keeper, Fergus the Kettle Wright, and Thorn the March Guard, and their pet boar Elon Tusk. So we're gonna see what happens. But anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in whatever video I make next.